All right, let's start with the newspapers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
I'm just going to start with the Irish Times this morning and with the Jim McGuinness column. Some key parts here. Super 8s begin with a bang, not a whimper. People are piling in on the Super 8s, and he's making the point that it was a really damn squib at the weekend, and also making the point that the analysis around defensive systems is completely bogus. At this point, the other glaring development in Dublin's game is that they're more heavily defensive than ever before. There were times when Dublin had all 15 men behind the ball. There is a myth at large that Tyrone, and to a lesser extent Galway, are the last remaining proponents of the defensive game. That witch hunt needs to stop, Brolly. Oh, sorry, the Brolly bit was deleted or never existed. Dublin are just as defensively oriented when it suits them, and Kerry also dropped back in huge numbers during the Galway game. The idea that Dublin are still some kind of advert for flamboyant attacking for total football is a delusion that too many are willing to uphold. Who are the deluded? Who is the leader of the deluded?
Does anyone actually believe that Dublin are all out attack? I don't think. I think he's kind of pointing out what we already know.
Anyone who's seen them play, like the biggest red herring that gets thrown out there is Tyrone aren't defensive. They scored 220 the other day. It's like you can be defensive and score a lot. If your defensive system is good and you counter-attack well, you can score a lot.
He's talking directly to Joe Brolly here.
Yeah.
This is I'm using my column to talk to, because you've been attacking me in your column.
Do you notice?
But I'm actually rising above you by not mentioning you, and fair play to him.
There are a lot of people biting back. Stephen Poacher seems to be, the Carlow coach, seems to be regularly going in on these analysts that are just lazily making those sort of suggestions. I was in Croker on Saturday night. Oh, it was drab to watch, wasn't it? It really was septic.
It was bad.
Like Tyrone versus Roscommon.
My parents were at the game after I got them tickets, and they complained bitterly that I gave them tickets, going, "You knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing sending us that game."
Yeah,
it's the worst game we've ever seen.
I got tickets for my brother, and he sent me a message at, I think, half-time of Tyrone Roscommon, just the word septic. Kind of tells you what it was about.
Jim is right, though, in terms of maybe the selective analysis of the likes of Tyrone, of the likes of Galway. Like Dublin, and certainly, like I wasn't at Croke Park on Saturday, so I wouldn't have appreciated what Dublin were doing without the ball, but certainly on Sunday, like quite often Galway were keeping 12 men behind the ball and Kerry were keeping 13 men behind the ball without the ball. So who's the more defensive team in the context of Sunday? Granted, we're only judging it on one day alone when Kerry for some reason played Peter Crowley as a sweeper, so it is a bit of an anomaly, but there is truth in what Jim is saying, for sure. There is a selective analysis.
Do you know what I thought was a big no-no for Donegal as well? Like, the way when Dublin have the ball, there's always a guy changing direction. So, like, if you're coming off my shoulder, you're not running the same direction as me. You're going to cut that way, or like Niall Scully for his goal. He kept coming off the wing and darting inwards and then being able to jink left and right, and he'd have someone else coming off his shoulder. Like, the amount of times that a Donegal guy would be running forward at the ball, the goals would be that direction, and the player is just coming directly at him. And I thought it was thoughtless running, and it made me think again, the absence of Paddy McBrearty is huge here.
Yeah, because there's supposed to be a third person, isn't there? Like, those runs are, you run one way, I run at you, and then the third person comes in there in space, because everybody...
And also the fact that this is the guy who's used to being the focal point of the attack all the time, the guy who always stands on the 6-yard box, the 14-yard line, whatever it is, and he knows what angles to be running from there. Whereas I felt like Jamie Brennan, I think, is a really good player, really promising. Is he ready to be like the guy up there just yet? I'm not sure. And I just thought that too often Donegal guys were coming out and they were running directly at where the man was coming from, which kind of bottled up their whole attack. No, it wasn't the only reason, but I definitely think it contributed to their downfall.
I do think this is interesting, though, that the pundits should be having spats with each other. It's far more entertaining when they call each other out on the stuff that they think is bogus. And
but let's call a spade here. Brolly got it completely wrong when it comes to his analysis of Kerry post Cork. Like saying that they found this new style of football, that they've somehow returned to their roots, and Fitzmaurice woke up one morning and was like, tradition is actually far more important than winning matches, and I'm going to prioritise that over the prioritisation of kind of shoring up my defence after what happened against Mayo last year. What was he basing that on? He was basing that on games against Clare and Cork, and to say that this sort of tradition has been prioritised is nonsense when you look at the performance against Galway on Sunday. Completely, like, he's got it wrong, and Jim is calling him out to a certain extent on that. Not directly on that evidence, but as you say, like, once you see it, like, because he's been so hard against that Donegal team, against the Galway team, and to a certain extent the Tyrone teams, it's like, it's fair game.
Go on.
Were you worried going into the game last Friday that, or like I suppose coming into the game on Sunday, that you were being set up for a fall as a Kerry guy, because you've all these young players, you had spanked Cork and spanked Clare, and that you were coming in against a Galway team that probably has just as much pace as the supposed pace that Kerry now have, but they're possibly a bit more physically seasoned. Their players would probably be a couple of years older, so I imagine they're stronger.
I think the down game in 2010 has always given that seed of doubt. It's like, I wonder if they manage to get tactically perfect, or if Kerry not choke but don't show up. There's always a possibility that sort of system can screw Kerry over, which is exactly what it did on Sunday. And fair play to Galway, they absolutely nailed it. And
you didn't think they were going to win, though. You didn't think.
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah,
of course I did.
Yeah, and
you arrogantly thought. You thought Kerry would win.
I know, I must be the only person in Kerry who.
We talked about Friday. I was very concerned for Kerry as well, just because of the physical power of this Galway team.
But then you looked at the supposed fluidity in that forward line and just how ruthless they were in the first couple of games, and you were like, this Galway defence can't possibly handle that, especially if Kerry push up in the sweeper, but they didn't do that, did they?
Is the Kildare train stopping, Ger, after the loss to Monaghan?
I totally forgot to go. I told you so. Momentum is bullshit. With the whole, Kildare have the momentum now, they've won a couple of games.
Well, no, the reason Monaghan beat them was because they built up a little bit of momentum after beating 3 Division 4 teams in the bounce in the qualifiers.
Oh, yeah.
Their momentum was greater than the other.
Yes,
momentum.
that's how it works. Walking the tightrope is the front page headline on the Examiner. Mike Quirke and John Fogarty on testing times for the Kerry management. I know you've been poring over the dispatches from Kerry on.
Yeah, it seems Mike Quirke and Tomás O'Shea both in agreement that Kieran Donaghy should have seen some action. They're both in agreement that Peter Crowley shouldn't have been stationed as a sweeper, and they're both in agreement that they were the two biggest elements that they got wrong on the line, but they also are in complete agreement that the players just did not perform anywhere near their ability, and it's mentioned with a couple of the big names who you would expect to show up this weekend. It will be a real anomaly if the likes of Paul Ganey, David Moran and Paul Murphy had terrible games back to back. Even if they were any bit decent last weekend, they would have probably kind of at least narrowed it down a small bit. It wouldn't have been a 7-point deficit at one stage.
Like, we all know Kieran Donaghy's a brilliant player and has been down through the years, but he is Plan B, and he's very different to what Plan A is.
Can I just
not suggest Plan A.
Can I just ask one point on that? So when you talk to Nathan about Mayo against Kerry and the importance of Donaghy, like there's a ghost in Mayo football that is Kieran Donaghy walking through it, plundering their All-Ireland dreams. He has literally done exactly the same thing to this set of Galway players.
Yes.
So it's fine to change your Plan A depending on who's playing and go, well, Plan A is going to be Donaghy this week and we're just going to pick him for this game, and next week we don't have to use him, but all of a sudden nobody knows what we're going to do, as opposed to we're going to have the young lads and go with Ganey and that inside line. So and when you talk about the ghosts, there's only one reason why Kerry looked so far superior to Galway last year, and it was because of Kieran Donaghy. Now, granted, David Walsh was playing his first ever championship game, I think, and was given the job of marking Kieran Donaghy, which wasn't easy. But surely there's some element of it's like, it's only 12 months on. Paddy Tally and the whole influence of the defensive system hasn't completely changed them. They've come on leaps and bounds and are probably the most improved team in the championship, but they haven't changed that much. Surely the thing that worked so well for you last year can kind of work again this year. At least give the guy 20 minutes to play. And I think the Killian Young sending off was the reason why he didn't come on, but I don't know.
Galway went through Division 1 this year. They were far more ready for Kerry this year.
It's true.
I mean, that is definitely all true, but not to give yourself that chance or even that option. Tyrone to be outnumbered in Omagh. This is Declan Bogue's story. Dublin to have more supporters on the home side. The reduced capacity for Healy Park is 17,636, presumably for an all ticket. There's a reduction in capacity, I don't know. Wikipedia has it at 25. Is that what we said the figure was?
Yeah, but the Wikipedia, like, obviously they fluctuate so heavily. Like, you can sometimes look at the list of attendances on Wikipedia or capacities on Wikipedia, and then you click into the hyperlink on the stadium, and suddenly it's 10,000 more when you look at the little sidebar in the profile. So you never know, but 25,000, if you Google Healy Park capacities, what comes up?
So the main stand holds 4,500. It's going to be split with clubs in Tyrone and Dublin, each getting 1,900 each. Dublin took their full allocation. All the season ticket holders, of which Dublin has a full subscription of 2,500, along with 1,000 Parnell Park season ticket holders, and Tyrone's 1,200 are going to be on the terraces for the evening, and the remainder ends up being split. So more Dubs than Tyrone supporters in Omagh.
It's a brilliant venue. I remember covering a Dublin league match up there a couple of years ago. The place was fairly thronged. Dermot Connolly scored an unbelievable winner right at the end. I think he cut it over with the outside of his boot from the 45. It's a pity he won't be there, isn't it?
Hey?
But it's going to be some occasion. One of the worst press boxes going, because There's a glass shield in the press box, and you actually can't hear the atmosphere. It's a bit like same with McHale Park in Castlebar as well. So
Prawn sandwiches.
yeah, everyone's worried about how the journalists experience it is, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's true. It's a real pity that those games weren't the first games. I think that would have fixed everybody's complaints about the Super 8s if this week's games in the provincial grounds had been first. People are making the case now that there should be no games in Croke Park until the All-Ireland football semi-finals.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. At this point, I fully agree with that.
Oh, the thought of Dublin against Roscommon, if it's a dead rubber in Croke Park.
What if the hurling quarterfinals were on in Croke Park?
Oh, they'd be lost there.
Similarly
they used to be. Was it 07 was the most recent time? No, they've been definitely there more recently because Cork beat Antrim there, I think, in 2010. But like, the games are lost there. And I was actually looking up last night how many hurling games have been in Croke Park this year. So how many do you think?
None.
One, yeah, just
Leinster final.
The Leinster final. And that was lost there. Like, that was the same day as the Munster final, Cork-Clare, which was a brilliant game.
Who was the Leinster final? Galway and
Kilkenny, 18 points each.
Like,
and it was
Galway and Kilkenny should come to a deal and say, it's home and away now, lads. We're going to be in this final more often than not for the next decade. It's home and away. What do you think? And do it in Nolan Park one year and do it in Galway the next.
Yeah, there's been 5 championship games in Thurles, and every one of them have actually been brilliant. I don't know what it is. It's slightly smaller. It's the right size. Like, Thurles is the sort of place that even if you had 5,000 there, there's actually still a pretty good atmosphere with the low stadium. I think it's like 45. It might be even more.
And so I missed the crowd figures for the game in Thurles at the weekend. Was it decent?
It was only 18, but again, it felt like there was a lot there.
Because the 10 the previous day seemed like it was completely empty, cavernous.
Parky Queeve, yeah, that just it sucks the life out of it.
It's mad, isn't it? That it's the same figures that they got for that under 21 game 12 months previous. What was that? That was almost 15, was it? At one stage, it was between 10 and 15. Like, it's extraordinary to think that, and it is just because of pure geography.
So the Irish Independent back page this morning, Fitzmaurice should start Donaghy. That's Tomás O'Shea. I did think I saw a headline saying, or a tweet anyway, from somebody retweeted today that Tomás O'Shea on the weekend had said Kerry could batter Galway. Was that true? Did he pre-match? It's harsh if somebody's digging that out, and if it's not true, I apologise.
I think he said something along those lines. He was certainly tipping Kerry in his Saturday column, but he didn't go too in depth.
Uncertainty over Fitz's Wexford future. The Davy Fitz thing, 2 years is about right.
Yeah, I'd imagine he'll give it another year. You do have to question, is this working or not? Because like, the sweeper system is great, but I think it kind of... And he's done really well. Like, the first season, they made huge strides, and he got to a Leinster final. But, like, after that, you have to worry, where's the development here? I'm sure there is a development, and he's trying to bring it on. And, you know, like the whole Jim McGuinness thing, where he starts off really defensive, and he gradually makes it more attacking. But you have to wonder with Wexford, have people figured the team out? You went from 9 points up against Kilkenny to lose.
Well,
you don't really look like you're going to kick on and beat Kilkenny or a Galway. A Galway more so.
We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes' time. We'll do that draw as well. Apologies, we're having a few streaming issues at the moment. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. And we're back. Thanks very much for rejoining us. You're welcome along to our second stream this morning. If you have just joined us, we have a brilliant show going up for you. We are going to talk with Gina Akpi-Moses a little bit later on about an amazing week for Irish sprinting. Obviously, silver at the World Under-20s. And we're also going down to the AFL to talk to Colin Reardon about his debut for the Sydney Swans. All of that coming up in a little while. Shane Stapleton is with us. This morning we're going through the newspapers. I was just about to do the back pages of the... I've already done this one. Fitzmaurice should start Donaghy. We were talking about Davy Fitz, and then Bray heading towards brink as club failed to meet FAI's wages deadline. The FAI issued a statement last night saying that they were going to sanction Bray Wanderers. Bray are not going to be allowed to sign any more players for the rest of the season, and far more importantly, they're out of the Iron Brew Scottish Cup.
Yeah, that's
I'd never heard of the Iron Brew Scottish Cup until I read it in the press release. What is it?
Well, it is a cup that is sponsored by Iron Brew and also has a term Scottish in there. I have no idea what it is.
Only 3 people know the recipe to Iron Brew, but of course, all 3 of us have probably never tasted it.
I've tasted it, yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, it tastes like, you remember the crackly gum that you would get and it would explode in your mouth and then turn into chewing gum? Yeah. It's exactly the same as that.
It's ginger ale.
No, it is definitely not ginger ale. Ginger ale is ginger ale, Canada Dry.
Yeah.
It's the only ginger ale that you should drink. And they've no ginger ale in France, by the way.
Or red lemonade outside Ireland.
Well, red lemonade is fair enough, but ginger ale is pretty famous. I'm like, oh, could I have a ginger ale, please? And they're like,
What they
What
serve
kind
up
of
the
ale
TK
do you
All right,
instead.
Grandpa.
but Iron Brew is
ginger
nothing
ale.
like it. Iron Brew is like this kind of viscous, disgusting, radioactive sugar turned into liquid form. Ugh.
You don't like it, Cher?
No, it's grim. Definitely not ginger ale.
That's why they built the Giants Causeway, was to get the hell away from Iron Brew, I think. That's
Right, so that's the broadsheets, the broadloids.
The back page of the Herald this morning is Harte plots revenge on Dubs. Tyrone boss studied 2017 semi-final loss inside out, which is definitely true. In that interview with Keith Duggan earlier on this year, I remember he could tell you exactly that Conor Callaghan wasn't marking his man and that he would have given out to him for bursting up the pitch and scoring that goal. So he has studied it inside out. He's been studying it inside out for the last 11 months. The back page of the Star this morning is Banned United. Sanchez sits out tour opener after US visa snub. So Alexis Sanchez has not been granted access to the United States of America because of his suspended 16-month sentence for tax evasion when he was in Spain for image rights and all that. So presumably, so Shane, if your image rights are up for grabs, make sure you kind of go via revenue properly, otherwise you will not get into the United States. French toast their heroes, says Tim Gray, and scramble for Oma, says Carlo Kane. That's the story with the tickets there for Healy Park this weekend. The back page of the Irish Mirror then this morning is has to go. Belgium star told to leave Chelsea by Martinez. He can play for any team in the world. So he's turned down a 300 grand a week contract at Chelsea, of course. Sarri set to take over there, but Roberto Martinez is saying that he should just get the hell out of there, which he's correct in saying. He
Would you
should
be
go to Real
listening to
Madrid.
Roberto Martinez?
I mean, when he's telling me to go to Real Madrid, it's like out of the mouths of babes, you know? That's fine. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea, Roberto. I should go to Real Madrid. That's a great idea.
I
Thanks very
definitely
much
was
for telling me
looking at
that.
myself already.
Yeah.
The
All I
back
needed was that outside validation.
the tab of the morning to you this morning is Justin Bieber pun on the back of the Sun. Is it too late now to stay? Sorry. Blues boss bid to keep world stars. It's an amazing headline. Well done to everybody at the Sun. And Alexis grounded. He can't go to the United States, as we said. Bray in disarray as well. And Pogba is a leader and must now be Jose's skipper. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the Paul Pogba story develops over the year, because we've all been illuminated at the fact that, yes, he is good at football. The front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section is I've been treated like a criminal. The shocking story of how Britain turned its back on West Indies cricket great Collis King. And the back page of The Guardian then this morning is a dazzling epic World Cup. 4 weeks of endless drama re-energises grand competition. And of course, you've got Ronaldo there. I want to leave my mark on the history of Juventus. Cristiano Ronaldo's arrival in Turin there
Was
yesterday.
everybody giving out about the World Cup before this World Cup? I didn't think they were.
A lot of people are talking about how it no longer matters as much. It's all about the Champions League. That's where the best players are.
Well, I
But
mean, the truth is that that's where the best players are, and that's where you're going to see the best football. But it matters way more than the Champions League, I would argue.
yeah, especially the group stages of the Champions League, they're pretty poor.
Was it to do with the soulless nature of it all? People were like, oh, but we don't have a good World Cup for like 12 years because we've got to go to Russia and then Qatar. Whereas now it's like, well, Russia was
Which was
great. Now it's
amazing.
just Qatar.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling in 4 years' time it's like Qatar is a jewel in the crown of the Middle East.
Look at the advances they've made in not killing the slaves who build the stadiums anymore.
It's like any
They're
other
not
Middle
building
Eastern
any
city.
stadiums.
Oh, and they've got marriage equality now. Oh, wait.
Kind of, yeah. Okay, so it's okay for us to laugh, right? Okay, we've got La Parisienne to show you the French celebrations. Le Retour des Héros.
Lovely, Ger. Lovely.
Do you know what that one means, Owen?
And the return of the heroes.
Well done, yeah. Excellent French translations. today
Duolingo
from
level 2.
Owen. We have L'équipe, or L'Equipe, as it's most commonly called around these parts. Une histoire de France.
A French history.
Yeah, French history,
I
surely.
don't think so. I think it's something else. Histoire is like a...
The story of
Not
France.
like a novel or something? Is it not like a...
Uh,
Tommy's useless. He's just telling us what's next. Raphael Varane apparently is next. As we're looking into his eyes, going, give us a translation there. He's like, nope. Raphael Varane next. So this is a video taken from Raphael Varane, and that looks pretty amazing, doesn't it?
That looks
The
class.
sun shines on the Champs-Elysees.
just like O'Connell Street.
I mean, that's what we could have turned O'Connell Street into if we hadn't butchered it. But anyway, yeah, it looks pretty sweet. I noticed the only footage I saw on Sky Sports News was of like riots from the previous night. I didn't see any stories about the riots. Was there significant rioting? Was it motivated by anything other than a few clowns, or?
I'm not quite sure. You're kind of putting me on the spot here.
Yeah.
I don't know the reasoning behind it, but you're right. There was some violence.
He keeps doing that to you, by the way, as well.
Yeah,
Put them on the spot.
I can usually kind of bat it away with some sort of changing the subject, but you can't really change the subject about that one, Shane.
No, that looked like when Barack Obama visited Moneygall. That's my take on that one.
The Plaza.
Yeah.
They'll build a Circle
My
K
mother
there on
works there.
Champs-Élysées.
What's that?
They'll build a Circle K there now on Champs-Élysées.
Yeah. And a Papa John's pizza.
Yeah.
Ugh.